Hey traders, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to talk about Vinco Ventures, ticker symbol BBIG. Now, today was a day we've been waiting for a very long time. Really, ever since I started making videos about this stock 4 to 5 months ago, we've been waiting for those proxy details, and today we finally got them, and they have proven our thesis and all the math that we've been doing that has been saying that this stock is insanely undervalued. It was insanely undervalued when it was at $2 and $3, and it is still very undervalued at these current levels. And so I'm going to break down that in today's video. I'm going to break down the main takeaways from the proxy being released, and then also just kind of go over how that affects our price target calculations. After that, I'm going to hop into the charts. It was an eventful day on the charts. I believe that this chart is still setting up beautifully despite a pretty disappointing end to the day. So I'm going to break all that down for you guys. And finally, we're going to go over short squeeze and gamma squeeze potential, why I believe that BBIG is currently a great candidate to see both of these happen in the very near future. So without any further ado, leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get started. Okay, so here we have the proxy announcement that we've been waiting on from Vinco Ventures. And essentially, there's a couple of main takeaways here that I want to discuss with you guys before I really break down the numbers and do the math. But ultimately, biggest point right here, we got kind of what we were anticipating to be the best case scenario for Vinco Ventures. We do see that the current Vinco Ventures does have that 50% ownership of ZVV Media Partners. That wasn't amended, that wasn't lowered down. And as a result, they are acquiring 40% of Lemotif, as 80% of Lemotif was acquired by ZVV Media Partners. And then ultimately, when these two companies merge together, we're going to see all 80% of Lemotif traded under BBIG's ticker symbol. However, we do have to keep in mind that when the two companies merge and ZVV becomes a part of Vinco Ventures, there is going to be dilution associated with that. So we're going to keep that in mind when we do our calculations later. But that being said, this was kind of our best case scenario that we've been calculating throughout these past few months. So that is a very good sign. Only other thing to really get into before we take a look at the numbers is just this right here, this announcement of Cryptide being the spinoff dividend coming for Vinco Ventures shareholders. Part of this is going to include immersive entertainment and ENFT.com. And on top of that, we are going to start receiving more info coming this October, so very soon, with a record date of shareholders to receive the Tide shares on October 15th. So if you're still holding Vinco Ventures stock on October 15th, well, then you're going to be receiving shares and the spinoff dividends through this Tide stock for Cryptide. So that's a very cool announcement. I am excited to read more into this as more details are announced. But, you know, we kind of did get this immersive spinoff pitched to us a couple of months ago. Now we finally have it all in writing. And this seems like a very promising bonus to what we're already seeing through BBIG's merger with Zash and acquisition of Lemotif. So now let's get right into that. Let's go into our price target calculations. And pretty much after today, there's no more variables that we have to account for. We pretty much have it locked up, and it's very easy now to figure out what fair value is. So first off, we're just going to start by just going over what we were calculating about a month ago when it came to BBIG price targets. This was kind of our latest update that we did before the proxy was announced. And as you guys can see, with that proxy announced, we are currently about to see the best case scenario with dilution, where we calculated a fair value price of 1667. That's kind of what we got today. We did get the best case scenario because we are seeing that Vinco is receiving 40% of Zash, and we also are going to see dilution. That's unfortunate. But as a result, you know, once I get into these calculations, you can see that we were pretty spot on kind of calculating this price target. And, you know, now let's hop into these updated numbers. So Post proxy update. The new ticker symbol BBIG will encapsulate all 80% of LOMO held by ZVV once dilution is factored in, allowing for ZASH stakeholders to receive fair share in the company. So the current Vinco Ventures isn't going to be receiving all 80% of Lomotif. ZASH has to get their own stake in BBIG in order for this to be a fair transaction. And that's exactly what's going to happen with the dilution that we're going to see in the upcoming months. So current shares outstanding is 80 million, give or take. And then the shares outstanding after the affirmative proxy without warrants factored in. So that essentially means with ZASH stakeholders being bought into Vinco Ventures, being bought into the company, we're going to sit right around 128 mil. And then, this is the only variable still remaining. Okay. We have the minimum additional dilution through warrants, which is around 60 million, and the maximum additional dilution through warrants, which is around 120 million. That all depends on whether, these institutional investors decide to exercise these warrants. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're either going to be left with a total shares outstanding of about 188 mil or total shares outstanding of about 247 million. But that being said, as a result of having this high share outstanding, we are also now obtaining a high percentage of Lomotif, which, as we all know, was recently valued by Gemini Valuation Services at $5 billion. And thus, the newly kind of merged Vinco's ownership is going to be worth that $5 billion. And then you take 80% of that. So you get $4 billion. That is huge for a company that was trading at a market cap of about $150 million just 3 weeks ago. And that makes our price target calculations very, very easy moving forward. Okay, worst case scenario, let's say we get the most possible dilution right here with this additional 120 mil or so. Well, all of a sudden, we just take that $4 billion fair value market cap divided by the amount of shares outstanding, and we get 1618, which was kind of just what we calculated right here when we were doing best case scenario with dilution. So that is now our worst case scenario price target. And then best case scenario, that is slightly less dilution here, but same math, and we get a price target of 2120. So anywhere between these two levels is now going to be considered fair value. But keep in mind, okay, that's only fair value for factoring in how Lomotif plays a factor into BBIG stock. This price target calculation doesn't factor in short squeeze and gamma squeeze potential, both of which I think are present, and I'm going to get into later in this video. Also, it doesn't factor in the Cryptide spinoff and all the additional value that BBIG shareholders are going to receive from that. And it also doesn't factor in any other projects Vinco is currently invested in. This price target is solely based off of Lomotif and the proxy announcement that came earlier today. So that is very, very promising. These are both just minimalistic numbers so that we have, at least the bare minimum figured out. But now with that all being said, let's hop into the charts. It was a very, very eventful day on the charts. As you guys can see here, we had a huge gap up in the morning, went all the way to all-time highs off open. 1221 at the time was our all-time highs. After that, flushed out. But, chart was holding steady. Volume was very, very strong throughout the entirety of the day. Chart curled up, broke some key levels, and we were off to the races. And then we set another all-time high, now at 1249 for Vinco Ventures. Unfortunately, we didn't really have the volume nor the consolidation on the chart today to keep pushing those levels. So that's what kind of caused this kill candle here. And then after that, market conditions weren't great. We never were really to reclaim that upward momentum. So, we were pushing right around here, but ultimately weren't able to make that next break above. And thus we kind of died out towards the end of the day. Very, very disappointing close all the way back down to 1024. So yes, while that is disappointing to see this drop off from 1250 to 1024, we know two things. Okay. First of all, fair value for this stock is still a lot higher than where it is trading at currently, and even where it was at when it was at its highs of the day. So a lot of upside ahead, nothing to be worried about, but also just zoom out on the chart. Okay. Look at what we're dealing with here. Look at this monumental move we've made over the last few weeks. And as you guys can see, we are continuing to trend to the upside. We're still setting higher highs here and higher lows. So this is ultimately very good. The sell-offs aren't the end of the world. That's called consolidation. That's pretty healthy. And ultimately, as a result, I think that it's going to allow us to start pushing even further on the day that, the stock really takes off. But right now, the longer term uptrend is very, very much intact. And so that is definitely a positive. I know it can get a little bit stressful sometimes when you're just watching it on the 1 minute chart and you're seeing this drop off from 1250 to 1024. But that being said, in the grand scheme of things, this stock is still very, very much trending to the upside. So that's a positive. That being said, let's hop into our key levels and indicators. Not really all that much to go over when it comes to the indicators. Normally I talk about moving averages for quite a bit. Finco Ventures, after, this massive move that they've made over the last few weeks, is sitting well above all of its moving averages. The closest moving average that I normally chart out is right here, all the way down at 793. That's the 9-day EMA. But currently, we are sitting well above all of those, meaning that Vinco Ventures is in bullish territory in the very short term, in the short term, in the intermediate term, and in the long term. All of those are very, very positive. And then the other indicator we need to talk about, this is more of a cautious indicator that I want you guys to keep in mind, so that what you realize that when we do have these drop-offs, like we did today, like we did, at some points last week, this isn't necessarily the worst thing for the stock. A stock can't just push up, 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 up forever. That's not healthy. If it goes up that quickly, it's going to come down that quickly. And as you guys can see, the RSI is still overextended on the overbought side. But that being said, it is, starting to calm down and consolidate a bit. Okay. And that is good. That's going to allow us to continue to push upwards without having these drastic drop-offs moving forward. So I kind of show you that to show you guys that, consolidation is very, very healthy. Buyers can't buy forever. Sellers are going to come in at some point and start overtaking the buyers if that is the case. So definitely not the end of the world with this consolidation that we're seeing. That being said, let's get into our key levels for tomorrow. So on the support side, 996, big level. If that doesn't hold, there could be a gap down all the way back down to 923 and 874. These have been kind of, great levels to start loading for swings. If they do come down to this level, like I always say, when it comes to support, you should always be targeting support levels. By doing so, you're going to minimize your risk and maximize your upside. So those are going to be your three first support levels to keep in mind. After that, 834, and then after that, this $8.775 area. We've seen some nice bounces out of there as well. So good to have all those charts charted out and, buying on dips if you are interested. But when it comes to the upside, what we're dealing with is 1050, 1085, 1117. Then we got some room to 1190, even though we did see a little bit of resistance today in the 1150 area. So I might as well just add that in for you guys. But above 1190, then we're going to 1220 and 1250 now is kind of the last line of defense for the shorts. After that, we have hit all-time highs, meaning that we don't know how high the stock could go after a 1250 break, as long as the volume and the momentum are still there. So that's a positive. Final indicator to take a look at when we're talking about the technicals is going to be the volume. As you guys can see here, absolutely monster day, almost 300 million shares traded. And obviously we still have after hours to deal with, but we just need to keep this volume up. It doesn't matter if it's 100 mil or 300 mil. This is very, very high volume. This is going to be pushing the stock, putting pressure on shorters and sellers. And so this is ultimately what we want to see continue. Just keep in mind, where we were at just a few weeks ago. We couldn't even crack 10 million shares traded most days. Now we are sitting comfortably at 100 million share days. So this is very, very good. It shows us that the momentum is still there. And all of a sudden, if that volume dies off, well, now the momentum may have died out. And that might be a time where if you are up big on the stock, it may be time to consider taking some profits. But while the momentum is still there, while fair value is still well in front of us, everything looks good for the stock to just kind of continue running. All that being said, now let's hop into just the final part of the video, which is going to be that short squeeze and gamma squeeze potential are still very much alive for the stock. So this is as of yesterday. We saw Will Mead tweet out that the S3 says BBIG is now 100 out of 100 short squeeze risk with a 28% short interest and a 78% borrow cost. Short volume was still pretty high today, so I don't assume that these numbers really changed all that drastically throughout the day. So very, very high short interest, very, very high borrow cost. And so this is ultimately very squeezable. And, I'm sure we'll get an update today, and we're still going to see that we have that 100 out of 100 short squeeze risk. And then as far as the gamma squeeze goes, this is still absolutely crazy to look at. We see so many call options right now being purchased out of the money. All those $10 strikes that weren't in the money today, or weren't in the money yesterday, are now in the money. So, you're already putting pressures on institutions to hedge their risk. Those $11 also have a big open interest rate. We're going to see those start to get covered soon. But then, things could get really crazy if we do get that squeeze up. And, if we get to that $15 range, or more importantly, that $20 range, I mean, look at how many contracts that essentially the institutions are hedging against, or will need to hedge against, if we put those in the money. So definitely gamma squeeze potential there. And I think, if the stock does go and start pushing, these high teens, $20 range, that's when we could really see a gamma squeeze and we could really get wacky with it. But all that being said, let me know what you think is going to happen next for the stock. I'm always interested to hear all of your guys' feedback. If you have any questions for me, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. If you like this video, hit me with a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. And aside from that, have a great rest of your night.